Your hairstyle can change the balance of your face more than you may realize, especially after 60, when hair density, texture, and natural gray patterns often begin to change. But looking fresh does not mean trying to look 20 years younger. It means choosing a haircut that places shape, movement, and volume where they work best for you. In this video, we are looking at 6 hairstyles that can feel modern, elegant, and realistic for women over 60, along with the small details that can make each one look significantly better. There is no single haircut that every woman over 60 should wear. Your natural density, texture, face proportions, glasses, lifestyle, and how much styling you are willing to do all matter. So throughout this video, pay attention to 4 things: where the haircut keeps its weight, where movement begins, how volume is distributed, and how easily the style can be recreated at home. Let's begin with one of the most timeless examples, the polished silver bob. The polished silver bob is an excellent option for women who want a clean, sophisticated shape without complicated daily styling, but the secret is not simply asking for a chin-length bob. The exact point where the hair ends matters. If the perimeter stops directly at the widest area of the jaw, it can emphasize that width, while moving the length slightly above or below it often creates a softer transition into the neck. Density at the ends is equally important, especially if your hair has become finer. Too many short layers can remove valuable weight and leave the bottom looking thin or wispy, so a stronger perimeter with subtle internal movement is often a better approach. Volume should also be intentional. You usually need only enough lift at the crown to prevent the hair from falling flat. Excessive height can quickly make a classic bob feel dated. A soft side part or slightly off-center part can create natural asymmetry and may help redirect volume toward an area where the hair feels less dense. If you wear glasses, ask your stylist to check the cut while your frames are actually on, because the front sections should sit comfortably around the temples rather than constantly catching behind them. Silver hair can make this shape particularly striking because natural white, silver, and deeper gray strands create dimension when light moves across the surface. The finish does not need to be perfectly smooth either. A slight natural bend or a few softly textured ends can prevent the haircut from looking too rigid. When speaking with your hairstylist, instead of simply saying, "I want a bob," try asking for a strong but soft perimeter, enough weight through the ends, gentle internal movement, and root lift that you can reproduce at home. That is what makes this haircut feel current after 60. It is not trying to disguise mature hair, it is using its density, silver color, and natural texture more intelligently. The silver bob creates elegance through structure and carefully preserved density. But not every woman wants such a defined shape. If you prefer more movement around the cheeks, jaw, and shoulders, the next hairstyle uses layering very differently. Let's look at soft shoulder-length layers. The second hairstyle is soft shoulder-length layers. This length works beautifully for women who want more movement around the face without giving up the softness and flexibility of longer hair. But the word layers can be misleading, because adding more layers does not automatically create better movement. Where those layers begin, how much density remains at the bottom, and how naturally the hair falls around the face are far more important. Soft shoulder-length layers are especially useful when hair still has enough density to support movement, but begins to feel heavy or flat when it is cut all at one length. The goal is not to remove as much hair as possible. Instead, the stylist should create movement in selected areas while protecting enough weight through the lower section so the ends still look healthy. Face framing is one of the most important details. If every layer begins too high around the cheeks, the haircut can become overly feathered or make the lower section look thin. A more modern approach is often to begin the shortest face framing pieces somewhere around the cheekbone, jaw, or even slightly below, depending on your face proportions and natural texture. That gives the hair movement without creating too many short pieces around the face. The area around the shoulders also matters. When hair lands directly on the shoulders, the ends can sometimes flip outward simply because they are resting against clothing, so moving the length slightly above or below that point can make styling easier. For women with finer hair, fewer longer layers usually preserve more density. For naturally thicker hair, subtle internal layering can remove bulk without creating an obviously layered appearance. If your hair has some natural wave, ask your stylist to evaluate it when the hair is dry as well as wet, because waves can shorten the apparent length and change where each layer actually falls. Styling should remain simple. A light root lift, gentle bend through the mid-lengths, and soft movement near the face are often enough. You should not need to curl every section perfectly. One of the best tests is to move your head naturally after styling. If the layers separate, fall back into place, and still look balanced, the cut is doing much of the work for you. When talking to your stylist, ask where the shortest face framing layer will sit, how much weight will remain through the ends, and whether the haircut will still look good when air-dried or lightly blow-dried. That conversation helps prevent the common mistake of asking for lots of layers and discovering later that the hair has lost the fullness you wanted to keep. The best shoulder-length layered cut feels soft because it moves, not because the ends have been thinned away. The shoulder-length layered cut uses movement while carefully preserving fullness. But some women prefer a style that removes much more length and puts the emphasis higher on the head. When that shorter shape is handled correctly, it can look modern rather than severe and textured rather than flat. Next, we are looking at the Modern Textured Pixie. A Modern Textured Pixie works best when the haircut is designed around your natural density and growth pattern rather than forcing every strand into the same direction. The top usually needs a little more length than the sides so the hair can create lift, separation, and movement, but that does not mean building extreme height at the crown. Too much volume on top with very tight sides can make the proportions feel disconnected. Instead, the goal is a gradual transition from the crown into the sides, with enough softness around the temples to keep the haircut flattering from every angle. The fringe is another important decision. A short straight fringe can feel very graphic, while a slightly longer side-swept section often creates more flexibility and can soften the forehead without hiding the face. If your hair is finer near the temples, ask your stylist not to remove too much density in that area, because overly aggressive thinning can make the contrast between the top and sides more noticeable. Texture is what keeps a pixie from looking flat. Small variations in length through the top allow individual sections to separate naturally, especially when the hair has some wave or natural bend. Styling should be simple. A small amount of lightweight product can define the texture, but heavy wax or too much hairspray can make silver hair appear stiff and dull. The neckline matters as well. A softly tapered nape usually feels more current than a harsh blocky finish and makes the haircut look polished as it grows out. Before committing to a pixie, think honestly about maintenance. Short hair may require less daily styling, but it often needs more frequent trims to preserve its shape. When you speak with your stylist, ask how much length they plan to leave on top, where they will preserve density around the temples, and how the cut will look after 4 or 5 weeks of growth. A successful pixie should still have personality when it is slightly imperfect. It should move when you touch it, fall back into shape naturally, and feel like an intentional haircut rather than simply a very short one. The textured pixie shows how shorter hair can create personality through proportion and controlled movement. But some women want softness without giving up the clean shape of a shorter cut. The next hairstyle sits closer to the jaw and lets natural wave become part of the structure rather than something that needs to be straightened away. Next, we are looking at the Soft Wavy Bob. The fourth hairstyle is the Soft Wavy Bob. This cut keeps the convenient length of a bob but replaces the polished, controlled finish with natural movement. The secret is not creating more curls. It is deciding where the wave begins, where volume is allowed to build, and how the shape remains balanced around the face. A soft wavy bob can be especially flattering when mature hair has natural bend, loose wave, or a texture that no longer wants to stay perfectly straight. Instead of fighting that movement every morning, the haircut can be designed to work with it. Wave placement is one of the first things to consider. If the widest part of every wave sits directly beside the widest part of the face, the overall shape can become unnecessarily broad, so allowing the strongest movement to begin slightly lower, around the cheekbone, jaw, or just beneath it, often creates a more balanced silhouette. Length matters for the same reason. A bob that finishes somewhere between the jaw and upper neck gives the wave enough room to form without allowing the style to become heavy. Layering should be handled carefully. Too many short layers can cause wavy hair to expand outward and create a triangular shape, while no layering at all may leave thicker hair feeling bulky near the bottom. The better solution is usually selective internal layering that removes weight where necessary without destroying the visible perimeter. Your stylist should also consider what happens when the hair dries, because wavy hair can appear noticeably shorter once its natural pattern returns. If possible, have the final shape checked when the hair is dry. Styling does not need to mean curling every section with an iron. A lightweight leave-in product, gentle scrunching, air drying, or low-heat diffusing can encourage the natural pattern while keeping the result soft. Try not to make every wave identical. Slight variation usually makes mature hair look more contemporary and less overly styled. If humidity causes the hair to expand, focus on moisture and definition rather than flattening the entire style with heavy product. When speaking with your stylist, ask where the strongest wave will sit, how the cut will behave when dry, and whether enough weight will remain at the perimeter to control expansion. The best wavy bob should still look good when the pattern changes slightly from day to day, because natural texture is not supposed to behave exactly the same every morning. The fifth hairstyle is the side-swept crop. This is a short haircut, but it creates softness in a very different way from the pixie. Instead of relying mainly on crown texture, the shape is built around direction. A longer front section moves gently across the forehead, one side carries slightly more visual weight, and the temples remain soft enough to keep the overall cut from feeling too severe. A side-swept crop works especially well when you want the ease of short hair but still prefer some movement around the forehead and temples. The first decision is fringe length. If the front section is cut too short, it can lose the soft diagonal line that gives this haircut its character. Leaving enough length to sweep naturally toward one side creates flexibility and allows the fringe to move rather than sit rigidly across the forehead. The direction of that fringe should also work with your natural growth pattern. If your hair naturally wants to move left, forcing it sharply to the right every morning may create unnecessary styling work. Temple density is another important detail. Mature hair can become finer in this area, so removing too much hair around the temples may expose more scalp than you intended and make the contrast with the fuller top more obvious. A good crop usually keeps a little softness there, even when the sides are short. The asymmetry does not need to be dramatic. One side can simply carry slightly more length or volume than the other, which often creates a fresher and more contemporary shape than a perfectly symmetrical short cut. The area around the ears should feel intentional too. Some women prefer the hair tucked neatly behind one ear, while others look better with a few soft pieces left in front. If you wear glasses, this becomes especially important because the fringe, temple area, and frames all compete for the same small space. Ask your stylist to check how the haircut sits with your glasses on. Styling should stay light. A small amount of mousse, lightweight cream, or flexible styling paste is usually enough to guide the fringe and define a few pieces. Too much product can separate fine silver hair into stiff sections and make the scalp more visible. This haircut also benefits from a natural finish. The fringe does not need to fall in exactly the same position every day. Slight movement makes the style look more relaxed and current. When speaking with your stylist, ask where the fringe will end, which direction works with your growth pattern, how much density will remain at the temples, and whether the shape will still work when you do not style it perfectly. The best side-swept crop should feel easy to live with, not like a haircut that only looks good for the first hour after leaving the salon. The side-swept crop shows how much personality can come from direction rather than length. But our final hairstyle asks us to think about shape in 3 dimensions. With natural curls, the question is not simply how short or long the hair should be. It is where volume builds, how the curl pattern contracts as it dries, and how the overall silhouette is balanced from every angle. Finally, let's look at graceful natural curls. The 6th hairstyle is graceful natural curls. With curly hair, length alone tells you very little about how the finished haircut will look, because the curl pattern contracts as it dries and creates volume in several directions at once. The real goal is to build a balanced silhouette that respects the natural curl rather than stretching, flattening, or controlling every strand into the same shape. Natural curls can look especially beautiful after 60 when the haircut is designed around the way the hair actually behaves when dry. One of the first things to understand is shrinkage. A curl may appear considerably longer when wet or stretched, so cutting only according to wet length can produce a very different result once the hair contracts. If your curls shrink noticeably, ask your stylist to evaluate the final shape when the hair is dry or close to its natural state. Volume placement is just as important. When too much weight sits at the bottom, curly hair can form a triangular silhouette, while removing too much from the sides can leave excessive height at the crown. The most balanced shapes usually distribute volume gradually from the crown through the sides and into the lower section. Face framing should also respect the curl pattern. A curl that lands near the cheek when wet may spring much higher when dry, so the shortest pieces need to be planned carefully. Density matters too. Mature curly hair may become finer in some areas while remaining fuller in others, which means aggressive thinning is rarely the best solution. Strategic shaping can remove bulk without sacrificing the curls that create fullness. Styling should focus on definition and moisture rather than stiffness. Lightweight leave-in conditioner, curl cream, or gel used sparingly can help curls group together, while gentle diffusing or air drying preserves their natural pattern. Once the hair is dry, repeatedly brushing through the curls usually separates them and creates unnecessary frizz. Instead, shape the hair gently with your fingers and allow some variation between individual curls. When speaking with your stylist, ask how much shrinkage they expect, where the widest part of the finished shape will sit, and whether the cut will be checked when dry. A successful curly haircut should look balanced from the front, side, and back, because natural curls are not a flat hairstyle. They create dimension, movement, and personality in every direction. Natural curls remind us of one of the most important ideas in this entire video. The best haircut works with the hair you actually have, not the hair you feel you are supposed to have. Before we finish, let's bring the 6 styles together and look at how to choose the right one for you. The 6 hairstyles we have looked at may appear very different, but they all follow the same principle. The haircut should work with the hair you actually have today. The polished silver bob preserves density and creates structure. Shoulder-length layers use carefully placed movement without sacrificing fullness. The textured pixie puts volume and personality higher on the head. The wavy bob works with natural bend instead of fighting it. The side-swept crop uses direction and asymmetry to create softness. And natural curls rely on balanced three-dimensional volume. None of these styles is automatically better because of age. The right choice depends on your own hair, your face, and the way you actually live. Before your next haircut, there are 5 questions worth asking yourself. First, where is my hair actually dense and where has it become finer? A haircut that ignores density can remove fullness from the exact areas where you need it most. Second, what does my natural texture want to do? Straight hair, loose waves, curls, and changing gray texture all behave differently, so a style that requires you to fight your natural pattern every morning may not be the most practical choice. Third, where do I want the visual weight to sit? Some women benefit from more structure near the jaw, others prefer movement around the shoulders, and some feel best with volume concentrated higher around the crown. Fourth, how much maintenance am I realistically willing to do? A short pixie may take only minutes to style but require more frequent salon visits, while longer layers may need fewer trims but more drying and shaping at home. And fifth, can I reproduce the hairstyle without the stylist standing beside me? This may be the most useful question of all. Before leaving the salon, ask your stylist to show you exactly how they created the shape, which products are truly necessary, and what the haircut should look like on a normal day rather than only immediately after a professional blow-dry. Now I would love to know which of these 6 hairstyles feels closest to you: the polished silver bob, shoulder-length layers, the textured pixie, the soft wavy bob, the side-swept crop, or natural curls? Share your favorite in the comments, and tell us what your own hair is like, because your experience may help another woman in this community. If you enjoy thoughtful, realistic style advice for women over 60, subscribe to Mature Women's Style. Great style is not about erasing age. It is about understanding what you have and learning how to make it work beautifully. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.